Broadcasting from the Prairie Sportsman Studios. Presented by OnX.
Know where you stand with OnX.
We're not just a radio show anymore.
Heck yeah.
This is Sporting Journal Radio.
Well, I feel like we should have some Christmas music or something playing right now. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here by downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. That's Dan Amundson right over there.
Hey.
We should put like a Santa hat on you or something, I suppose. But
No. Who's giggling over there?
Well, we got David Eckhardt in the studio with us. Finally back in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, David, how you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for joining us. We got a lot to get to. It's Christmas, so we're going to look back on the year and talk about some of our favorite moments of the last year, and then also get some updated fishing reports. We got Joe Henry's going to join us from Lake of the Woods to talk about ice and snow conditions up there at Lake of the Woods. We'll recap our Alaska trip too. David, so I had a few people that they would see some of the stuff we'd share from Alaska, and they'd be like, oh, that's so cool. And then we'd have a few people that are like, quit showing me this stuff. I'm sick of seeing it already. Where did you sit in that camp?
Oh, I wanted to see all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still showing me pictures. I'm like, oh, cool. That's what you saw? Like I watched a clip from you last night, and there was a seal in it. I'm like, oh, they saw seals. I never heard about that.
Seals, sea lions, sea otters. We saw a ton of wildlife. And we might even show you, if you're watching this, we might even show you a little teaser of our trip to Alaska coming up this week. So stay tuned right here. We'll talk more about that. And also, you guys did some fishing. I didn't get to go because I was working on some of that Alaska stuff. But you guys did some fishing, so we'll get some fishing reports from you guys and talk about how it went. I did do some pheasant hunting. I got some bad news for pheasant hunters out there. And really, it's for wildlife all over, at least western Minnesota. Probably some bad news. We'll talk about all that coming up in a little bit. But first, Dan, who are the sponsors this week?
Crap.
Oh,
Forgot about this part. We're going to make it up on the fly.
All right, good.
Let's find out. OnX Hunt. Know where you stand with OnX.
Okay.
Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Live Target. Match the hatch with Live Target. Be sure to vote for the Ultimate Frog in the FTEX voting. Haybell Heights, Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Book a trip to Haybell Heights at haybellheights.com. Al Claire. Check out what we're wearing in our ears. We got in-ear monitors. Protect your ears with Al Claire Outdoors. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Prairie Sportsman, the new season starts January 2023. Otherwise, watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel.
That's pretty good. Also, Riverbend Resort this week.
Yeah, and Riverbend. I think I forgot about them.
Yeah, riverbendresort.com. We're planning a trip up there this winter. We're going to do some ice fishing with Paul and Brandy and the guys and girls up there at Riverbend. We're excited to get back up there to Lake of the Woods. And then we're also going to be doing our spring trip again, our big old party that we had last year in April.
I love it.
Yeah, at Rainy River. So make plans in April. All the details about that party will be coming up here soon on Sporting Journal Radio. All right, why don't you guys talk a little bit about fishing? I'm going to go let my dog out since obviously she needs to go outside, and
all right,
she's letting us know.
See you later. We went fishing yesterday. It didn't go very good.
No, the bite was pretty tough. We saw a lot of fish, but they did not want to bite with this weather front coming through.
Yeah, it was cloudy and snowy and kind of windy by the time we wrapped up. We ended up somehow in South Dakota.
Yeah.
That was unplanned.
That was kind of a on-the-fly call.
How many people just pack up and say, we're going to South Dakota midway through their fishing excursion on another lake in Minnesota?
Well, I mean, we were halfway there already.
Well, kind of, but still, like, oh, we're in South Dakota now. But yeah, the wind, and it was gross. Let's just say that.
As soon as that sun started to disappear, it got bitterly cold.
Yeah, I was glad to be. I see what you did there. It was, I was glad to be gone. But yeah, you didn't miss much yesterday, Brett.
Well, so I just want to say something really cool. So we got these Al Claires. It's a Studio 3 triple drivers that we're using. It's like in-ear monitors, basically. A lot of musicians wear these, and we're using them to film and obviously record this podcast. And then I went out and bought some wireless transmitters and receivers. And I actually walked all the way outside with my dog just now, and I could hear you guys the whole way. So if any, I know we have some people that do some filming that watch this show. Might be kind of a neat option for you. If you want to know more about it, let me know. But it was a funny story. Like, I wanted to fish with you guys yesterday too, but I had some work to do and Dan wasn't sure. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go. I got the work done. I'm going to go fishing. I'm like, all right. And then we thawed out some venison steaks. So I was like, well, I'll cook some steaks tonight. That'll be good. And we'll see what time Dan might be home. And I got a snap from you guys, and it was just Dan stuffing his face. What were you eating, by the way?
It was Cinnabon cinnamon rolls. You can't go wrong with Cinnabon. If you know where we live, you know how scarce a good cinnamon roll is. You don't turn down a cinnamon roll.
Where did you even find it?
At Cinnabon.
In a gas station, big truck stop.
Oh.
I don't want to say where, because now people are going to figure out where we went fishing.
Yeah, probably.
I don't want that.
So I didn't know, because I figured you guys I thought you went to a Casey's or something. And
Well, I would have had pizza then.
yeah, so it's like, all right, well, Dan's eating. They're on their way back, and that was like early afternoon or mid afternoon or something. And a couple hours go by. I'm like, well, I'll see. I'll just pull him up on Snap Maps and see where he's at. See if he wants to do some fishing. Yeah, you were in a different state. Like, okay,
2 hours away.
they're not going to be home for a while. So, but anyway, it sounds like I didn't miss a whole lot though. That's what you said. Fishing wasn't that good.
No, it was slow,
How was the ice?
thick.
A lot better than we expected.
We could have drove a 4-wheeler, could have drove a truck on some of it. We just walked out because we weren't too sure, just to be safe. And used the spud bar, walked out about 100 yards and drilled a hole, and it was like 14 inches. And we just laughed.
Well, but
This is plenty safe.
And that being said, though, I mean, we found out that there was a snowmobiling accident that somebody went through the night before in one of the spots we ended up.
Yeah.
So still use caution wherever you are.
Yeah, no ice is safe.
It's inconsistent, I think, but we just happen to be on some pretty thick ice.
Right.
But still, especially with the wind and storms we've had, you got to be careful out there. Conditions change on the fly this time of year, as people on Red Lake found out a few weeks ago, and other people are unfortunately finding out in some sad ways.
Well, you guys got some reports too that the ice was not that good on that lake,
Right.
and so when you saw 14, obviously you were pretty surprised about it. But that was a big lake, and on different parts of it, you had different ice conditions. So,
And I had heard a report on the same lake the day before big spot had just reopened. Just a few miles away. So
this is why I don't ice fish early. And I know this isn't necessarily early ice. It's still kind of early ice, but not necessarily. But it's still early ice for me,
yeah,
personally. But I'm too busy pheasant hunting yet. But I'll tell you what, I walked through some sloughs, and there was a little bit of slush, but it felt like it was almost like slush on top of ice type slush.
right.
And then I walked across some water. I was still scared to walk across the sloughs yet, but I walked across a couple, and it was pretty good ice there. But when you guys went to the second lake, did you find similar ice conditions?
Yeah.
There was even more ice there.
Oh.
Our batteries were cold on augers.
Yeah,
and-
it took a while to drill holes.
Yeah,
we also weren't on the main part of the lake.
right.
We were in a little bay, so could be different 2 miles out, could be different 4 miles out, and
Right.
you just don't know. We don't know. We didn't get to cover a lot of ground. We're not that fast walkers. We're fast walkers.
And it was cold. We had a lot of clothes on.
Yeah.
How much snow was on the ice?
Not a lot. A lot of it's blowing off. That's the nice thing about this wind, that the lakes are not as snowy as people would think, because it's blowing right off. So it's drifting up in other places, but we hardly walked through any snow on the first lake.
No,
and they
there's-
got dumped with snow a week ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice, actually.
I think it's hard on the shorelines where it's drifted up. There's not as much ice under all that blanket of snow, but the main body is solid.
Well, yeah, because a truck went through on another body of water we know along the
small
shore.
slough, yeah.
So
Oh, really?
still sketchy.
Mhm.
in
I
other
didn't hear
places.
about that
And
one.
5 feet away, there was 14 inches ice.
Oh, geez.
So spud bar.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Floating suits.
when you do that, David, when you go out there with a spud bar, like how many steps are you taking before you're whacking the ice again?
I'm hitting every other step.
Just giving her
Yeah.
just like in a rhythm.
Yep. Just kind of walking and punching and
Yeah.
hoping it doesn't go through.
Yeah, jeez. Float. You got a floating suit on though.
I do, yeah.
Did you guys have ice picks with then too?
I've got some, yeah.
I don't know where mine are. I can't find them.
Did you buy some yet, Dan?
Yeah, I own some.
Okay.
But
'Cause
I
then-
just don't know where they are.
you didn't have them last year, did you?
No, I had them last year. I remember
did?
I wore them goose hunting one day. That's a story for another time. But yeah,
Well-
I just don't know where I put them. They're probably in the metaverse.
Geese are closing probably this weekend, aren't they?
Ooh, no, probably after Christmas. I honestly don't know. We've kind
It's
of
midweek next week.
It's
Yeah.
midweek? Okay.
like 28th or something.
Yeah.
We should know that, but
Yeah, I'm
we
gonna
haven't
look it
goose
up.
hunted in like 3 weeks. So
There's no geese left.
no.
Are they all gone? I mean, is everything frozen up? Obviously we've been gone for a
The
couple
dam
weeks.
was still open, but there's like 20 birds.
Okay.
Like
It's pretty
half
much
of them are sick.
Those are our birds.
half
Those
of
are our
them,
birds.
half of them are sick.
That's what somebody told me. They didn't look real healthy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The avian bird flu
Yep.
deal? Dang. Geese, December 28th. Yep.
Nailed it.
For Central and South. North closes December 23rd. I didn't know there was a different date for geese for the different zones.
Yeah.
A couple of days earlier. Well, they don't have.
Why would that be?
Well, because I think you have the same amount of days, but they don't have the split up north.
That's true. I suppose
So it's an
that's
extra
true.
5
We get an
days
extra
for us.
5
I
days
forgot.
down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I did
I should
too.
know that. I'm
Well, you hunted up there. I don't.
gonna. Well, when I hunted up there, we were done before Thanksgiving every year,
Yeah.
and it just freezes out. That's what happens. So
You guys got on a pretty good hunt. Was that your last hunt before we went to Alaska?
no,
Last
that
season?
would have been Clark. Or which hunt are you talking about? Or the
know.
one we've got clips loaded in from?
Yeah.
No,
That was my way
that
of
was
trying to
really-
introduce these clips.
Well, I don't know because we went on a good hunt before Alaska, but the one we were going to talk. Well, you weren't on that one. I
Oh,
guess.
I wasn't on either
No.
one.
No, but David was on one. That was
early.
That was before pheasant opener.
Yeah.
But that was probably my favorite one of the year.
Right. That was
Yeah.
one of the first cornfields that came
Yeah.
out.
Oh, that's what this clip is from before.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Fluffy corn. It's a goose hunter's dream. Fluffy corn, good hide, layout blinds. If you like hunting out of layout blinds, which I do, and geese doing it perfectly.
Yeah.
It was a blast, and conditions lined up. It was kind of fun. We hunted with a couple guys that I'd never met, but you kind of
I knew him, yeah.
and we teamed up in a way, and I think some of them said it was the best goose hunt of their life. And
Yeah,
that's always fun to hear.
There's some friends of my dad's, and you know, dad grew up goose hunting with them, you know, when it was a 1 bird limit, and they were happy just shooting their 1 bird. And even now with 5 birds, they're still, you know, they've never probably limited out in that way. You know, they'd be happy just shooting 1.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how when you hunt with an older guy like that who hunted back in the old days when it was, well, like my dad will talk about when he grew up hunting, there weren't geese really in Minnesota hardly at
Right.
all. Maybe just a few in Rochester, maybe Hutch. And then he'd get tingles like down his spine
Yep.
if he heard a Canada goose flying over. And now it's like, you know, people are getting attacked on golf courses by him, you know. But you talk to some of those old guys that can only shoot 1 a day, and then they see what we can do these days, and their minds are blown by it.
Right.
Especially decoying them close like that. And that first clip you showed where they didn't even hesitate. They just dumped, like those 2 just dumped straight down.
Yeah,
Don't
we
even
were landing birds.
Yeah.
And
It's like taking a kid hunting for the first time
Yeah.
again. Even like an older guy goose hunting. It's seriously like
Oh, yeah.
it's the same feeling almost. That to me, and that's part of what made this hunt special. It was probably my favorite hunt in Minnesota this year. For that was obviously conditions were perfect. It lined up great, but part of it was just that feeling of these guys got on a cool hunt and we were able to be a part
they
of that.
just kept
And-
going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Can't believe it.
You know,
That's-
and we'd shoot 6, 7 out of a flock for 5 of us or more, or
Yeah.
have a good rain out for a fall hunt.
Yeah.
And they just, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it never gets old. That's the fun of hunting with new people and
And
people
then
like
they've
that.
never run big spreads like we do now.
right. Well, back then it was a lot of pass shooting, I'm sure.
Or
You
yeah,
know,
either they'd put, 12 shells out.
magnums.
And
Yep.
call it good. And
Yeah.
so
Old wooden
we're
goose
setting
call.
up, and he's like, what are we putting out? I'm like, well, I've got 10 dozen silhouettes, in the back of my truck.
Oh my gosh.
10 dozen, really? I'm like, yeah, we're putting them all out.
And then we had some full bodies on top of that.
Yeah.
So we had a night, for a feed, a good spread.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing special to goose hunters, but
Right.
for
It's not
people who've never seen it before.
400 full bodies.
No,
and
no.
like running a snow goose spread, but
Well,
Can't wait for that.
and you were definitely on the X and probably birds. That was earlier, right? So
Yeah.
probably not too pressured. I'm
no,
guessing.
they were pretty dumb. They read the script just right.
I
so.
love it. I love it. There's nothing better than decoying birds close like that, man.
Yeah.
That's the best part. And I'm sure that's, shooting them is great, but I'm sure what was so fun for them was just seeing them, come in feet down like that at 10 yards.
Well, and then the other thing
landing.
too, like they always, if they call at all, they just, do a few clucks on a flute.
Oh, the
And
old
we
flute.
had the other 3 of us, are proficient at calling and reading birds, and we needed 4 birds to go to fill out our limit. A 4-pack of migrators came over.
That's
We
this
just-
4 here we're
Yeah,
watching.
we just laid on
dropped-
them.
Oh, those were migrators even.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We just poured the coals on them, and they spun around from like a half mile and came
Yeah, they
crawling
kept
back in.
trucking, and then it's like, whoop,
yeah,
on a hook.
and just drug them right into 10 yards, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't believe it.
It was perfect. We needed 4. It was the last 4. We
Yep.
were able to get all 4, and it was perfect. I like watching that film because Tony Crotty filmed that, and they landed right in front of him. And I think he was either you or him were calling the shots that day. And
I was calling them, yeah.
and you yelled the call, and he's still filming. So I see him like go, oh crap, put his phone down and have to jump up and shoot. And I thought we were going to lose one.
They kind of split, so those two kind of landed off to his left,
Right.
and he was on the left side. So none of us really had a shot at him except for you, right next to him.
We needed Tony to shoot if we wanted both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I shoot. But that was definitely a highlight of this fall, and it's fun to sit back at the year's ended and relive some of those memories.
Right.
So we just got done editing the Prairie Sportsman episode from the pheasant opener, and that was definitely one of my highlights. And I'm sure, I know, Dan, you don't pheasant hunt as much anymore, but that was a pretty wild pheasant hunt for you too.
Yeah.
And
and that was like right after this hunt.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a fun week.
And you'll be able to watch that. We shot our 4 birds. I think it took 13 minutes.
Give it away.
Oh, I'm sorry. We shot them very quickly. Wait for the Prairie Sportsman episode to come out, and then you can watch it. And you know, I know you guys have been fishing, and I'm finally starting to get my fishing gear out. I got this new live scope that I'm getting rigged up finally. I'm really excited to use it, but I usually don't get excited about fishing until after, until we get to January. Usually I'm still bow hunting this time of year. Thankfully, I don't have to sit in a stand right now. Oh my gosh.
For the first time in a while. It was like this last year, and you were dragging me out to hunt.
Yeah, but it wasn't this. It wasn't this cold.
Close.
It was cold.
Felt like it.
It wasn't this cold and windy for one thing.
Next week looks nice though.
Yeah. Do you?
I still have a doe tag in South Dakota.
Okay.
So,
You're gonna get out there.
yep. I'm gonna try and get it filled anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, like I'd almost rather be bow hunting than pheasant hunting right now. And you'd have to break my legs to get me not to pheasant hunt the last week of the season. But I've been out a couple of times this week, and the amount of heavy wet snow that we got is bad news, because a lot of the cattails are full. I flushed a couple of birds from some cattails that were buried in there, but I think I pushed them in there, and then they tried to hide, and then I walked up on them and flushed them out. But they're in the trees, they're in the willows. Even like half the willow thickets are filled in with snow right now. So you got to find them in the pines or even some of the groves. A lot of times they're in the groves. And if you've been driving around pheasant country here this last week, you've been seeing groups of them out in the ag fields scratching, trying to get down through that snow to get to the food.
They look like geese feeding.
Yeah.
They'll lay down and melt the snow like a goose. It's kind of wild. And there's that many of them. It looks like a goose feed.
Right.
Yeah. And it's cool to see. Like, for somebody that likes to see wildlife or see pheasants, it's kind of neat to see that spectacle of all those birds out there. But it means bad things. It means they're forced out there. It means they're desperate to find food. So then I broke through, I don't know how many packed hard snow drifts that I had to try to crawl over, and then you get on top of it, and then it breaks and you fall in. But there was one snowdrift I went through that was chest high. Like it was a big drift to get through. So if you're one of those guys that likes pheasant hunting in the grass and doesn't even like busting cattails, you're done. You're done for the year. I'm even like I've been limiting how much I go, and even my dogs like taking it easy on them, because it's tough out there. And if we don't lose some of the snow, like when we came home from Alaska, Dan, what's the first thing we noticed walking up to the door is I've got this, I don't know, some kind of bush next to the door, and it was almost flat to the ground, buried in snow. And it sits, I don't know, 3.5, 4 feet high or whatever. It was almost flat to the ground because that snow was weighing it down. So the corn, like standing corn that's out there, corn food plots. How are your food plots doing right now, David?
I haven't been in them lately, but I'm sure they're flat.
Yeah. Thankfully I got one of the food plots here is kind of protected a little bit, and I saw Tiny was running through there pretty good. And I did see some pheasants in the corn this morning, but there's a lot of snow in the corn, and a lot of the corn is knocked down. The cattails are full, so it's gonna be tough sledding for the rest of the pheasant season for you guys out there, and that's gonna be tough on the wildlife all winter. It's gonna be tough on the deer because it's gonna be hard for even them to get around. You hear about problems up north with deer and wolves when you got heavy snow years, and I think that's gonna be the case this year. which thankfully, I don't know if thankfully is the right word for it, but I saw the DNR this week put out a new wolf management plan, and I was trying to sift through it because it's like 67 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And it's for the next 10 years. You can see it, Sporting Journal Radio. It's on the website, right, Dan?
Yep.
SportingJournalRadio.com, and we linked to it on our Facebook page. I sifted through it just to try to see what they said about the hunting seasons, and it was like a couple of pages worth of hunting information. So I didn't get through all of it, but what I did look for right away was what their goal. I tried to find a management goal population, and it was like 1,600 wolves. And they said, we're way above the goals that the Endangered Species Act wants. So we got a healthy population. I think they said the population is around 2,700 wolves right now in Minnesota. And they have somewhere in there, I don't know if I would call it their population goal, but they basically said something about 1,600 wolves. So I could see us having hunting and trapping being part of the management plan, if available. I don't even remember. Are they on the endangered species list again?
Yeah.
They are. They did go back on.
Oh, yeah.
I just stopped caring about it because I was so sick of hearing about it. And it went back and forth there. But if it were to come off again, which I think it will, they have a plan in place, and I think hunting will be a part of that.
They have to review some stuff. They're gonna weigh the options and discuss it. But it's not automatic where if they come off, we have a hunting season. It's
correct.
It's not off the table, but it's not on the table.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. Yeah, it's on the table. It's not guaranteed.
Well, it's just like what happened when they came off the endangered species list a year or two ago, or whenever that was now. Wisconsin implemented it right away, and Minnesota's like, we're just going to sit back and wait. And there's been enough buildings burned in the last couple of years in Minnesota. Gosh. Let's just wait a minute before we enrage the public once again.
I could see it being like 2 years where they would watch Wisconsin again, do it, and then see what happens. And then by then it might be too late again. Who knows? It's so hard to say. It's all politics.
It's all politics.
Go vote, please.
Yeah.
Go vote.
Bottom line is you need to have that population under control, and we have plenty of wolves. The population is just fine. It's literally just another tool from anti-hunters to try to get hunting banned in general. They just know wolves are an easy target because it's not a white-tailed deer. You're not shooting a bunch of wolves to feed your family or anything, so it's an easy target for them. That's all it is. But anyway, so that was a little bit of newsworthy stuff coming out of the Minnesota DNR. We haven't even talked about Alaska yet.
No, and we got to go to break.
All right. Well, let's do that. We'll come back and we'll talk our Alaska trip a little bit for you.
It's ice fishing season and time to plan your trip to Riverbend Resort on Lake of the Woods. Stay at the Lakeside Resort along the Rainy River in one of their new cabins and enjoy delicious meals and hot or cold beverages in the Miles Lab Bar and Grill. Or stay in one of their comfortable sleeper houses on the ice, complete with a TV, stove, and lots of walleyes right beneath your feet. You also have the option of staying at their motel, the Walleye Inn, located in Baudette. Book your ice fishing trip to famous Lake of the Woods today at riverbendresort.com. That's riverbendresort.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Ottertail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
All right, we're back. This is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here. By downloading the podcast, you can stream it on demand at sportingjournalradio.com, or you can watch us on YouTube. Thank you very much. That's Dan Amundson right over there.
Still here.
And David Eckhardt right over there.
Still here as well.
How you guys doing?
Still good.
Dan, what did you think about going up to Alaska?
Is it too late, or can we go back like right now, even though we just got home? It's probably the coolest place I've ever been in my life. I know I'm young. I haven't been to a whole lot of places, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find a place cooler than Alaska, especially Kodiak Island. My goodness.
I wanted to duck hunt in Alaska. I think my goal originally was to duck hunt with mountains in the background in Alaska. Now, I know that you can do that in a couple other places in the States, but I wanted to do it in Alaska. And sometimes, Dan, it was so surreal while we were there that it didn't even matter. Like, there would be lulls, just like any other duck hunting. It was a different duck hunting experience up there. We'll talk about a little bit, but there would be some lulls like anything else, and you'd sit there and you just look in front of you, and there's just a mountain.
It looked like a screensaver for a computer.
That's exactly it. Yeah, except way cooler.
It was crazy. And then, we'd see sea otters and sea lions and seals, and that was one of the last hunts of the trip. And all of a sudden, it was a seal came popping up in our decoy line. Like, I looked off I was sitting on the right side, and I looked off to the right, and all of a sudden there's this big boil in the water. I couldn't figure out what it was because I just saw the water.
Largemouth bass.
I couldn't figure out what it was, and I was sitting there staring at it, and the tides would go up and down so much that a lot of times as the tide would drop, just rocks would appear. And there's always a little bit of current kind of moving through the water, and whether wind or tide or just currents in general. But so what would happen is all of a sudden rocks would start appearing, and you'd see, like the water would be kind of boiling before that rock would protrude out of the top. So I'm like, it's just a rock, whatever. And all of a sudden I look in front, and I see the boil again in front of me right by our decoy line, and here's a seal pops up. And as I sees this little buffalo, it was a bufflehead decoy or the golden ID. I can't remember what decoy it was, but it was the first decoy in the line, like the closest decoy to us. And it's staring at it like, can I eat this? And it was sneaking up to it. And Dan, I couldn't see where Dan was, and Dan was filming and I was hunting. So I wasn't sure if Dan, and everybody kind of froze and didn't want to say anything. And I didn't know if Dan was filming it or not. And
no faith in your cameraman.
I didn't know if he could see it. And so, like, it was creeping up on this decoy and creeping. So I'm like, I got a GoPro on my head. I'm like, I'm just going to fire up the GoPro and make sure we get this moment caught on some sort of camera. And it saw my hand move just a little bit, and all of a sudden it's kind of stopped and kind of backed up a second, and then ducked and swam away. But it was pretty cool seeing that thing swim right up. And we'll either have the clip for you here if you're watching this on YouTube, and you'll be able to see it here later, or you'll be able to see it. We filmed a whole show for North American Waterfowl that you'll be able to see in 2023, but we'll be showing footage over the next few weeks. We'll show some footage here on this show right here. What was a highlight for you think, Dan?
Of 2023, or no, that hasn't happened yet. 2022 or Kodiak or what?
Yeah, Alaska.
Well, I don't know. You asked me this question while we're up there, and I kind of gave the same answer of I hate that question because so many cool things happened and so many cool things we got to see.
Well, let me ask you this then. Okay. What was the most unexpected part of the trip for you?
You actually killing a duck?
Also my most unexpected moment.
No, maybe it's just kind of how tough those birds are.
Yeah.
Obviously, we knew they were going to be tough, but they're tough. We could decoy them, and some of them aren't the smartest, but man, to be able to survive in those elements, they're pretty resilient. Boy, I don't know what was unexpected.
Lots of feathers, lots of fat, lots of armor on them. They're tough birds. And I was kind of surprised, I know the buffleheads played nice, of course.
Not Minnesota nice.
No, you're right. They were a little bit tougher up there, but I didn't realize how friendly the golden eyes would be.
Oh, they love those white decoys.
And the barrows, like right away. It was the first day we hunted, but the second spot that we set up, because what we would do basically is we'd go set up on a spot, and then if it wasn't working, if we were seeing ducks kind of buzzing around, because it was just a huge area, like a 25-mile area, basically 25 by 2, that we were kind of bouncing around to different places. And if ducks weren't really there, we'd pack up and move, get in the boat and move a little bit and set up there again. And we moved to this one spot, and there were mallards there were golden eyes there were
emperor geese.
Yeah, we saw some emperor geese.
Oh, really?
Which was really cool.
Wow.
And hearing that, I think hearing the emperor geese was definitely a highlight for me.
There we go. That was unexpected. I didn't expect to see emperors.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. But I don't know if you've ever seen or heard any.
Never heard them. No, I have no idea what they would.
They're
even
like a
sound
snow
like.
goose, kind of.
Really,
but not quite. Like that's what. Well, Gunnar had seen him. Gunnar, who's taking us hunting, he's like, they're either snows or emperor geese, and they turned out to be emperors. And it's like, whoa, that's an
right.
a pinnacle of waterfowl hunting.
And it was just like a group of 20.
Yeah.
And
Just a whole flock.
yeah, so they,
It's not just one.
yeah, and they had, so I had some DRC calls with, so of course I broke out. I think I had the snow call, and so I was like, I was trying to mimic. Apparently, I'm mimicking barking dogs when I'm trying to sound like an emperor goose. But I was trying to mimic the sound and try to call them over just to see them, get them close. And they didn't really come close, but they'd kind of get up and bounce around a little bit. But we had 2 lines of decoys out, kind of. We only had about 10 decoys that first day. So we had a group of like 6, and then a group of, or 7, I think, and then like a group of 3 that were kind of off to the side a little bit. But that close line, as the tide dropped, next thing you know, they're literally like right next to the shore, this rocky beach shoreline. And the goldeneyes would land almost on top of the decoys. Like they were 1 foot off the shoreline, 10 yards in front.
Crazy.
Well, at the beginning, 10 yards in front of us. But I think to me that was one of the biggest challenges of hunting up there is you'd set your decoys, and thankfully we had guys with a boat that could go out and get stuff. But we'd set decoys, and they'd set them so close to the shoreline. I'm like, hey guys, can we find a way to move the decoys out a little bit? And I'm like, well, if you go like 5 more feet, it's 25 feet deep,
or 25 fathoms deep.
Oh yeah, they talk in fathoms.
Learned what
Yeah.
a fathom
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, 6 feet. And then they would, or you'd set them there, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'd set them out like 20 yards from shore. I'd walk out there in waders. I could set them for like 20 yards. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I'd set them there. I'm like, why not? He goes, well, because in about an hour, you won't be able to walk to those anymore. Oh, and then they were right. We had to leave. One spot, we had to leave them and come back with a boat to pick them up.
Really?
So it was, the tide was definitely a challenge out there for us. But man, what an unbelievable trip.
Absolutely.
Unreal.
Was very cool. What'd you do when we were gone, David?
Oh, lots of stuff. But one of the big highlights is a hunt we do every year with a bunch of high school friends, and it's changed over the years, but we do a rabbit hunt.
Oh boy.
And it's always a great time. This was the 17th year we've been doing it. We started doing it when we were 16, just 3 of us, and now it's high school buddies mostly, and then college buddies, and just everybody wants to go on it because it's such a blast. We shot 79 rabbits this year.
Wow.
We were 11 short of 11 short of a limit.
Jeez.
Which
I don't even know what a rabbit limit is.
It's 10.
10, okay.
And I talked to a guy from Wisconsin one time, and because I think they can only shoot 3. I'm like, oh, we just shoot piles of them. And he's like, oh man, I wish we could shoot 10. He's like, we limit out all the time.
And these are all cottontail rabbits?
Yep. And then we get, squirrels and a lot of pheasants. Some years more than others, but I think we shot 3.
79 rabbits and 3 pheasants. That's when you sent that snap to me. I just laughed because I was like, oh, 3 pheasants, 79 rabbits.
It's all snow dependent. Like if we would do the rabbit hunt now, we'd see a lot more pheasants in the groves, but we just push groves, and
Oh, sure.
some years we get 10 and some years we get 1. But
What are you using to shoot these things with?
just trap load and shotguns.
How about that 410?
I used to take that a lot.
Now that you know how it shoots, do you take it anymore?
No. Well, I found out what it was worth, and I'm like, I'm not dragging that through.
Yeah.
That grove, scratching it all up. But I do have friends that use 410s. They buy the cheap over-under Stevens or just a kind of a beater gun. And it's a fun hunt to use those different guns that you don't normally use. Like some guys got 28 gauges and 16 gauges. And just something. My brother-in-law has a old side-by-side black powder. Shot 12 gauge.
Cool.
He didn't bring it this year. Last year he brought it, but you could always tell when he had a rabbit in front of him because it was boom, 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 kawoom. You'd see a big puff of smoke in the grove. We're like, oh, he had one by him.
That's awesome. Well, next week, maybe I want to ask you how much rabbit you've eaten in the last couple of weeks then, and how you're preparing it and all that stuff, because that's a lot. You don't get a ton of meat off a rabbit when you got 79 of them.
We had like a 5-gallon pail full of meat.
Did you?
It was a lot of meat.
That's good meat, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like rabbit. All right. Well, David, thank you very much.
Yep.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to talk to Joe Henry and get a Lake of the Woods fishing and snowmobile report coming up here in just a second. For those of you watching on YouTube, here's a little teaser of our trip to Alaska.
That we have tides.
How often in a duck blind has somebody said he's coming between us and the whale?
Oh my gosh, ducks everywhere, boys.
Something not making of that out here.
Yeah. With that ice there, man, I don't want you guys doing a slip and slide into the ocean.
Yeah.
Feeding on all these kelp and all the mussels and everything in here.
Come ice fish the famous waters of Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world. Experience full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper house options. From the northwest angle to the south shore, Rainy River and Baudette, the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleye, sauger, perch, and northern pike. Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, best fishing anywhere. For more information, log on to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Live Target, the leader in Match the Hatch, is back with new lures that also match the action. Introducing the Live Craw. The Live Craw is irresistible to bass, walleye, and other freshwater species. FTech's winner, the Ultimate Frog, looks and acts just like a swimming frog. With an exposed ultra-point mustad hook and replaceable legs, the Ultimate Frog has 2 styles, 2 sizes, and 8 colors. And iCast and FTech's winner, the Live Shrimp, mimics a fleeing shrimp for saltwater anglers. Coming soon from Live Target. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Well, it's almost here, the end of the hunting season. I'm not happy about it, but I am finally starting to get excited about ice fishing. I know you've probably been out on the ice many times. I know, Dan, you've been out doing a lot of fishing. And we're going to bring Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism on now to talk about Lake of the Woods. And Joe, not only am I getting excited about fishing, but last year we didn't have a whole lot of snow. I didn't really run my snowmobile much, but I think we got plenty of snow so far. Maybe I'll bring the snowmobile up to Lake of the Woods this year, Joe.
You know what? You and I have been on snowmobile trips on Lake of the Woods before, and you know what it's like. I'll tell you, it's interesting. Between the Lake of the Woods Drifters Snowmobile Club on the south end of the lake, and then the Northwest Angle Edge Riders up at the Northwest Angle. Man, these clubs up there, they work so hard. Literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of snowmobile trails. It's not a real cosmopolitan snowmobile area, Brett, because everybody's ice fishing. But I'll tell you, when we've had people up there, Jamie Dimon, for instance, remember we had him in the trail, and his comment was, "Holy smokes, these trails are awesome, and there's nobody on them." But these clubs work so hard, made up of volunteers, and they work so hard, dragging the trails first, trimming trees that have fallen on the trail, dragging them with tires, getting them hard. Then it comes to a point where you can start using the groomers, working the swamps, making sure the swamps are properly frozen for the trail. making sure signage is up properly. I mean, just there's so many things that they do behind the scenes to make these trails doable. Now, I'll say this. If you are a snowmobiler and you want to get off the beaten path a little bit, away from the crowds, I'll tell you, Lake of the Woods should be on your radar screen. Not only is it so picturesque with literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of trails, you're going through wilderness. You have the opportunity to go 42 miles across Lake of the Woods and access the northwest angle. Shoot, you could go up there and have lunch and hang out. You could go up there and stay a couple nights and fish. I mean, it's such a not only is it recreational snowmobiling up at Lake of the Woods, but it creates a transportation route across the lake, allows you to get up to the northwest angle and avoid customs. I mean, 42 miles on a snowmobile trail that's staked and groomed, heck, it takes you an hour or less. I mean, depends on what you're pulling behind you, but I mean, it's nothing.
Yeah, and it's a fun way to do it. And, you know, you brought up Jamie, and Jamie's like me. I mean, loves to fish. His snowmobiling is obviously a lot of fun, too. And the beauty of going up to Lake of the Woods to do it is there's all the trails that you can trail ride on. But if you want to do a snowmobile and ice fishing trip, I mean, what a better place to do it than to go do it up there. And we rode trails down at the south end, and we took that 42-mile trail up to the northwest angle, which is something, if you fish in Minnesota or ride snowmobiles in Minnesota, that's a trail, whether you want to fish Lake of the Woods or not, that should be on your list as a trail to ride just because of how unique it is. And then there's some trails, of course, up at the angle. But the beauty of what we did, Joe, is we went up there and rode, and then did some fishing while we were up there too. And the fishing was good. In fact, we left that one day. We left Jamie in the trail. We were filming for Prairie Sportsman, which is what you're watching right here, an episode of Prairie Sportsman. If you're watching this on YouTube, we still had a few things we had to film. We had a couple of shots we needed to get and riding through some of the more picturesque parts of the northwest angle. I wanted to get that snow-covered, like going through a tunnel of pines, basically, is that epic shot of riding a snowmobile through a tunnel of pines up in northern Minnesota, and we got that. And while we went and did that, Jamie just sat in the fish house. It was around lunchtime, I think. He sat there and caught more walleyes than we did the entire time right there in the middle of the day.
It's the way Lake of the Woods is, that stained water. You know, when they come through, and yeah, as you know, Jamie's a pretty darn good stick, so I don't think we could have put a better representative in that fish out to take care of business.
I know he was filming himself too. He had GoPro set up and he was doing all the filming, and it was like he couldn't keep up with it. He kept catching fish. So
that snowmobiling trip was so much fun, and you know, part of it was going up there and stopping and doing some filming along the way on the way up. Part of it was we experienced a day of 25 below zero. Yeah. Part of it was the beauty, seeing trails we've never seen before, going literally up to the very corner, the northwest, the northernmost point of the contiguous U.S. We went really right to the border. It was kind of fun. You had Dylan, your videographer, with. It was, I think, his first trip with Prairie Sportsman. That was unique for him. I remember when we were at the bar, we were having him experiment with different types of, let's just call them hydration beverages.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole thing was just really enjoyable. Man, we fished, we laughed, we saw beauty like no other. We had those Polaris snowmobiles; they worked like a charm. I mean, the whole thing was just a fun trip.
Yeah, it was nice having those new sleds for sure. They were fun. And
25 below zero, we go and turn those suckers over and bang, they crack off. And you know, it's part of the allure of having a newer sled. It's also part of the allure of having multiple people on your trip in case something would go wrong with somebody's sled at one point.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely safety to keep in mind, and having new sleds definitely eased our mind just a little bit ripping up there. And it was cold, and it was, we did get through it pretty quick, and it was Dylan's first ever filming shoot for Prairie Sportsman, so it was definitely an eye-opening experience for him. And the best, I know I've told this story 100 times on the show, but the best was getting in the vehicle afterward on the way home, and he's sitting in the back seat. He's like, "Guys, what does frostbite look like?" It's
his first gig with Prairie Sportsman TV. He's a young videographer, and what do you do? Hey, we're going to snowmobile 42 miles across Lake of the Woods. It's going to be 25 below zero, and hang on.
Yeah, he didn't hesitate. He jumped in head first. He did great. He did not have frostbite. I just want to clarify, he did not have it, but he was.
Well, but the other thing too was, as a videographer and being a professional. making sure that the shots are coming through and the lens is clear. You're going 25 below zero, and then you're stepping into a fish house, and that's tricky with batteries, with making sure the lens is clear, all that jazz.
Lenses fog up so much on those trips. It's hard. It's not easy filming in the winter. An outdoor, I think Jim Shockey said at one time, an outdoor photographer is the hardest job, or like filming for an outdoor TV show is the hardest job in the world. And I know there are some occupations out there that'll argue that, but it's tough, and you got to get the shot, and you're dealing with Mother Nature, you're dealing with wild animals, you're dealing with unpredictability, and then going in and out of a fish house when it's 25 below zero, it's tough on the camera gear. Batteries don't last, and the lenses fog up so fast that you almost have to have a plan going in to have a lens ready that's not fogged up, so if something happens right away, you can make sure you capture it. But I'd assume.
I would say this. I mean, if people that are listening, if you go and Google, Prairie Sportsman TV, snowmobiling to the Northwest Angle, I'm sure that episode would pop up. But it's one worth checking out again, I think.
Yeah, it was a fun episode to film, and it was a fun experience. There's a lot of cool things to do in Minnesota, and being able to snowmobile all the way up to the angle across Lake of the Woods and then fish up the angle. It's a pretty unique outdoor opportunity that everybody should try. And I'm guessing with the amount of snow we've gotten this year, Joe, it's probably a good year to do that. How are the snow conditions up there, and how are the ice conditions right now?
You know what? So the trail is staked from the south end of Lake of the Woods up to the Northwest Angle, both along the eastern border and western border. So that trail is ready to roll. The snowmobile clubs have been active. So things are shaping up really good. Yep, we got a fair amount of snow. Our ice is forming very nicely. We've been fishing since early December, as most people know. That ice is getting thicker and thicker. So, sleeper fish houses are out in some areas of Lake of the Woods. I'll say some areas because every area of ice is a little different. But, so as that ice thickens, we're allowed to put more weight out there. And, pretty soon, not yet, pretty soon, some of the roads are going to open up to lighter pickups and that sort of thing. And then it'll progress from there. But again, when you're going up to Lake of the Woods, if you're thinking about coming up and bringing your own fish house with a truck, just take a look at the Facebook pages of the resorts, communicate with the resorts, and you'll find out when that's going to happen. But, we are on track, Brett, this year. Things are shaping up real nice so far. We do got some snow in the lake, but, thankfully those, the resorts and outfitters have been plowing those trails, keeping the snow off them so they're getting nice and thick. And then, of course, what that does allows that cold air to penetrate. If you don't have all that layer of snow, it can penetrate through that ice and actually makes it thicker. Every year we encourage people to stay on the ice roads, stay on the ice trails. If you're going to go off the trails, stay in the trail until you get out to the fishing grounds, and make sure you're communicating. Hey, is it okay if I go off to the east or the west off of an ice road? And they'll tell you, we have it marked off about a half a mile off one side or a mile off another side, or just communicate. Know what you're doing. Don't go, on your own expecting that the ice is going to be consistent, because that isn't always the case.
Yeah, and you got to deal with pressure ridges and different things like that. So, especially for me, it just makes sense traveling that far just to jump in with a resort up there. And they're getting some sleeper houses out. Did you say that?
We are getting some sleeper houses out. Yep. So sleepers are getting out there, and we got. I never want to say. I mean, people say how much ice is at Lake of the Woods. Well, 0 to 14, 15 inches. I mean, in some areas where there's neck down areas and different things going on, there's hardly any ice. And in other areas that it's more consistent, where we got, 12 to 14 or 15 inches. So, but again, lean on each individual ice road operator, and they will tell you how their road is and what the weight limitations are in their ice road. That's just for safety. It's just too big of an area to make a blanket statement about our ice. And I would say that about really any lake. Even a smaller lake, you could go out of the public access, and that trail is one thing. And if you come out of let's say a resort on the other side of the lake, that trail can be a whole nother thing. So just heat on safety. You know what I mean?
So I saw an email, I'm going to try to find it here if I can, from the DNR about catch and release records. And I think it sounds like by 2024, they're going to try to have catch and release records for walleyes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's got to be great news for Lake of the Woods.
Well, it is. It's great news for Lake of the Woods because we have a lot of big walleyes. But, it's also great news for people that are fishing in Minnesota. And you know what? I'm one of those guys that I have one walleye on my wall. You can probably see it behind me. And, that walleye The reason that's on my wall is 31.5, cut ice fishing up at Lake of the Woods with a group of outdoor writers from Aglow. But the reason it's on my wall is because after, I caught it, put up a hard fight, took a few pictures. I tried letting that fish go for about 25 minutes, and her gills are moving, her pectoral fins were moving in the hole, but she just didn't have it. I knew she wasn't going to make it. So I mounted it. But the thing that is, in most cases, in every other case I've caught big walleyes, I've always released them. And I don't want to have to, if I ever catch a fish that's so freaking big, it might be a record, I don't want to have to kill that fish to find out if it's a record or not. Let me have a tape measure with me. Let me have some understanding of what I need to do. Basically, I think what you need to do, and don't quote me on this, but you have to be able to measure the length, properly and get some pictures of it. You need to measure the girth and get some pictures of it. You need to have an eyewitness. You need to fill out a form. You have to sign an affidavit, all that jazz. And then they'll consider you for a catch and release record. I would take a look at the DNR website and check out what you need for a catch and release record. Throw a tape measure, in your bucket and just have it with you all the time. You just never know. I mean, already we have the potential for a catch and release sturgeon, muskie, and pike. They've been in place already, and we don't have catfish up north. But now when they start implementing walleyes and things, boy, you just never know on Lake of the Woods when you're going to pull that trophy out of the ice.
And I can't find that story about the new catch and release records, but it was a plan essentially, I think, to set up a program for 19 new species or something like that, and then and implement it over the next couple of years, including some new ones in 2023. And then why they would wait with walleye to 2024, I don't know why, unless they just want to work out the bugs and make sure that they got everything set up right for when walleyes. But you think they've been doing it for sturgeon, muskie, and flatheads enough that they'd have it figured out, and pike. But
it's funny. We've heard of many, quite a few sturgeon, for instance, up north that probably were a state record, but people didn't have the proper tools with them to measure it and record it and such. So then they couldn't do that. But many big sturgeon have been not only caught and released that we think are state records. There's been a lot of big sturgeon caught this year through the ice. Some on purpose, most of them accidentally by walleye anglers.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about targeting sturgeon through the ice. We saw a video. I think Nicole Stone reposted a video with Greg Jones coming through with the sturgeon coming up through the ice here recently on social media. So let's talk about that.
From last year, I think.
It was from last year. Yeah, she was reposting last year. So I want to talk a little bit about catching sturgeon, but we'll do that next week. For now, Joe, if people want to get a trip planned to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
Yeah, man, it's game on coming up. Check out our website. We have all of our resorts, ice roads, everything you need to know. And that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.